Greetings, everybody. I want to take a minute and solve this problem here, which somebody sent me from my math lab. And I want to do it in a way that helps you visualize what we're trying to think about as much as understanding the math. Okay? But before I go into this, you could relate to this idea. If, like, there are a bunch of numbers, and they could represent, say, the price of a house. Okay, so say we collect some data and it's the price of different houses in different neighborhoods of different ages and different conditions of repair, and they're going to be all over the place. You know, there might be some typical values, okay, that are more or less normal or what we would expect a house to cost, but then there are going to be some that are far less or far more, okay? So you get this idea with numbers, with data, with prices, or whatever it is, that there are typical values that you expect, and then there are unusual values, and that's what this is asking us about. Okay, here the numbers are the value of land and buildings per acre on a farm, right? But it's the value, it's the price of something. And yeah, we might expect that some of these values are typical and some aren't, but how do we quantify that? Like, how do we, because whether something is unusual or not is just somebody's opinion, right? So we're doing math, and so I want to pin it down with numbers and say that this value is unusual or not, okay? And the way that we do that, the way that we pin this down with numbers, is we take our data and we find the mean, okay? And we say if a value or a number is more than 2 standard deviations from the mean, then we would consider it unusual, okay? And if it's more than 3 standard deviations from the mean, then it's very unusual. And 4 standard deviations is probably very hard to find, okay? Okay, so here's how we'll do it. I noticed about this question that the mean and the standard deviation is already given, so I don't have to worry about calculating that. Okay, somebody already did that. They collected all this data about the value of land and buildings per acre on a farm, and they did all the math, and they said the mean is 1600 and the standard deviation is 100. Okay, so we've got that. So all we need to do is figure out how far away from the mean would 2 standard deviations be. And the way that I did that is like this, okay? I take 1600, which is the mean, and I subtract 2 times the standard deviation. And that's the low end. That's 2 standard deviations away on the left, if you thought of it like the number line. And then I took 1600 plus 2 times 100. 1600 plus 2 times the standard deviation. So what you see here, what I intended to calculate was the mean, either plus or minus 2 times whatever the standard deviation is. Now, on the low end, 2 standard deviations away from the mean is $1,400. And on the high end, 2 standard deviations from the mean is $1,800. So here's what we're saying. Let's visualize at this point. I have here a number line, okay? And I'm going to say, well, that's the land value, or whatever it was, the value of the land and buildings on the farm per acre. And it's okay, well, it's like, imagine all these prices, like 1,300, 1,400, all the way up to 1,900. The usual values are within 2 standard deviations of the mean, and that would be like in here from 1,400 to 1,800. So any price that's in here in this area of the number line I highlighted in blue is 2 standard deviations from the mean as I calculated it, and would be considered normal or usual. So what I did at this point, okay, what you're looking at here additionally are these prices, okay? Here's like a bunch of different seemingly random prices. So which ones fall within the usual range and which ones don't, okay? So I took every single one of these and I put them on here, and I located where they would be to scale. And the only 2 that weren't in this usual values range, which is 2 standard deviations from the mean, was 1283 and 1853, okay? So that's why, like, when we look at the answer, this one was answered incorrectly when it was sent to me, But it's these, it's 1283 and 1850. Those are the ones that if you visualize, if you look at the number line, are just not within the usual values range, okay? All right, so that's how you can think about it. If you want to visualize it, if you like the number line, if seeing it helps you take in the information and understand what to do, you do it that way. Now I'm going to leave you with this last part. It says, which of the farms are very unusual, more than 3 standard deviations from the mean? Well, the concept wouldn't be any different. I would just have to take the mean, take away 2 times the standard deviation. That would be the low end of that range, okay? And then take the mean plus 2 times or 3 times the standard deviation. That would be the high end. And then if I wanted to, I could plot them on the number line again, figure out which ones are outside of 3 standard deviations down and 3 standard deviations up. Okay, so that's how you do it. We don't have to do much calculating in this one, but we do have to understand what we're doing when we calculate this range, okay? Visualize it with the number line if you like. Follow up with me with any other questions.